Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to class. Hope everyone had a lovely week. Today is another day to learn, unlearn, and relearn. But before we start, I'd like to give us a couple of minutes to inform our party members to please join the call so that we can start the class. We are 41 in class right now, and we should be more than this. So I'll be giving you guys a couple of minutes to get them to join the call. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to the another weekend of learning. I trust that we have had an amazing week. Today, we will be going into another topic, and our facilitator is ready. Today, we'll be looking at democracy and citizens' participation. Democracy and citizens' participation. Before I read his bio, I just wanted to mention one more time, chairpersons, please get your members in the class. As at the last count, we're about 40 something, but now we are pushing up the numbers. I think it can be better. So whilst I go through his bio,
I'm
please
sorry,
get your
Adesola.
members. Yes, please.
Good evening. You are host. Can you make a facilitator a co-host, please, before you start?
Okay.
You have the host function here. And Lisa too.
Okay, hold on. Please. Okay. Please, Mariam, if you're in the room, you can raise up your hands.
Additional
Okay.
facilitator.
I've seen our, yes, I've seen our host. Yes, I've seen him. I've made him a co-host. Thank you. Okay. So good evening once again. Our facilitator this evening is a renowned communications expert and a social commentator. He is the founder of Uburu, a Nigeria-based marketing communications consultancy providing services to individuals, businesses, and governments across West Africa. He is also an advocate of good governance and civic responsibility. He's the convener, apologies please, of I Am Edo, a movement of young Edo professionals, which seeks to inspire pride and patriotism in all the people of Edo heritage. This evening, we have the pleasure of having amongst us Mr. Tony Usidame, who will be taking us on democracy and citizens' participation. If our hands are not too busy or tired, please let's welcome Mr. Tony Usidame as he takes us on democracy and citizens' participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adeshola, for the introduction. Governor, who knows? Maybe someday. Maybe someday. I just might be. Yes, thank you so much. I would need help with my presentation as I go on. If you can help me from slide to slide. So, good evening again, everyone. I apologize first and foremost for coming into class late. It is not in my character. I do not do African time. I respect your time, and I thank you all for being here today. I'm no expert at this topic. I am just an interested, you could say, citizen, just like you. And this is not going to be a lecture per se. It's just sharing my idea, my experience. And at some point, I would love to hear from you, whether through questions at the end or maybe remarks in the chat box. So feel free at any point, if you would like to say anything, just put it in the chat box, or you can wait till the end of the presentation, and then we can, have an interactive session then. So our topic today, democracy and citizen participation. We are going to look at various forms of government. We're going to look at anarchism, autocracy, oligarchy, and then, of course, democracy. And then we'll delve deeper into democracy. We'll look at its meaning, origin, and practice. We'll look at the different variants of democracy. We'll also explore some of the challenges of democracy. And finally, we would look at citizenship, exploring two key concepts: citizens as users and consumers, and citizens as shapers and makers. And then we'll look at issues in modern day citizenship and how to build active citizen participation. So let's begin with the various forms of government. First of all, what is government? In simple terms, government is the body with the power to make and or enforce laws to control a country, a land area, a people, or an organization. I would repeat that. Government is the body with the power to make or enforce laws to control a country, a land area, a people, or an organization. I know that most times when we hear the word government or when we use the word government, we just usually think of a geographical territory, a country. But the word government has wider usage. I'm sure some of us in the corporate space have heard the term corporate governance, meaning that some form of government also, you also see some form of government in corporate organizations, even in the homes, in churches, social gatherings, social organizations, there exists some form of government in those places. So as long as you have a person or a body that has been handed the power to make and enforce laws for people, either in a geographical territory, land area, for a social organization, that is a government. And most societies today agree that the existence of a government is morally justified. So, what are the different types of government that we have? The first one we want to look at is anarchism. Anarchism technically means rule by none. Okay, technically, it is ruled by none. It is a society where there is no publicly enforced government or political authority. In practice, like, technically speaking, you won't see a place that you say, okay, this is an anarchist government or a place that practices anarchism. But you see it play out, and we'll delve into how this plays out. Even in other forms of government that we'll look at, we'll see how even in a democracy, even in any of the other forms of government, you can still have the existence of some form of anarchism, even with other forms of government. So technically, anarchism is ruled by none. It's a society without a publicly enforced government or political authority. The next one we want to look at is autocracy. An autocracy means rule by one. It's a system of government where supreme power is concentrated in the hands of one person, whether it's his social or political power, or a polity whose decisions are subject to neither external legal restraints or any regularized mechanisms of popular control. So anarchism is a system of government where one person or, a few people, a polity makes decisions. And examples of those are absolute monarchies in countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Brunei, and dictatorships in countries like North Korea. Those are modern day examples of autocracy. Again, it is ruled by one. And in this type of government, only one person or a polity exercises supreme power over a geographical area or people. And then the next form of government is oligarchy. And oligarchy means rule by the few. It's a form of power structure where a small number of people make decisions or control a geographical area, a social area, or a people. Oligarchy, again, is rule of the few. It's a form of government in which power structure rests with a small number of people. And this can take different forms. I mean, this people can be distinguished by different factors. So you have, under oligarchy, you can have the aristocracy, which simply means rule by the noble people, rule by nobility. When you think about, the royal family in the United Kingdom, for instance, that is an example of an aristocratic government where it is people of noble birth that rule over a people, a geographical area. Another form of oligarchy is what is called plutocracy. And plutocracy simply means rule by the wealthy. So you find that in a geographical area, the richest exert some form of authority over the rest of us. And you would see this play out even in other forms of government, as we would see. I did mention that in anarchism, as well as in autocracy, you can see semblance of these, technical kinds of government in other forms of government. It's the same as oligarchy, as we'll see when we look at democracy in greater detail later. So aristocracy, again, is a form of oligarchic government, which means rule by people of noble birth. Plutocracy is ruled by the wealthy, the rich people in the society. Meritocracy is another form of oligarchic government, and that simply means rule by the meritorious. So the best at various fields are the ones ruling. So the engineers, for instance, in a society, the best engineers might be responsible for all the infrastructure developments in a particular area. Say the best legal minds in the country might be in charge of, things to do with the constitution and the laws. That is an example of rule by the meritorious, meritocracy. So the best of us are leading us in that kind of government. And then finally, as a form of oligarchic government, there is the theocracy. And theocracy technically is rule by God. But we all know that God will not come down and, rule by himself. So power in this case is exercised by a religious elite. And if you think about countries, the one that comes to mind when you talk theocracy is Iran. It has many aspects of a theocratic state. So in a nutshell, these are the, broadly speaking, various types of government that we have: anarchism, autocracy, oligarchy. And now let's look at the more popular form of government, which is democracy. Democracy, as most people know, is rule by the majority, right? The more popular definition is it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is a democracy. In our next slides, we'll take a deeper dive into what democracy really means, not just in theory, but in practice. And then we'll look at the variants of democracy that we have. Okay, so let's look at the origin and practice of democracy. If I asked, I don't know how many people there are in this class. Earlier, Adeshola said there were about 40 something. How many are we now? Anyways, if I asked all of us what democracy means for us, I am sure that part of the definition that will come from you will be that democracy is a government of the people. It is the will of the majority. It is competition for political power. It is the right to voice our opinions, as varied as they are. It is freedom to be part of any organization. So when you talk democracy, you talk freedom of association. Democracy is equality, rights, and representation. When you talk democracy, you're talking a free market in an ideal situation, in an ideal democracy, if there's anything like that. You're talking citizen action. And of course, you can't talk democracy without talking elections. So these are some of the more common meaning that we give to the word democracy in everyday use. Now, how did democracy start? The word democracy, like I said before, it literally means rule by the people. The term is derived from the Greek word demokratia, and demokratia is coined from two words. The first is demos, which means people, and the second is kratos, which means rule. That's why democracy is rule by the people, rule by the majority. And the word, the coinage, demokratia, which means democracy, was thought to have been started around the middle of the 5th century. However, there is ample evidence to show that various democratic governments existed in, practical sense in several areas of the world, even before the 5th century. There is evidence and research to show that in most of those natural in the non-literate tribal society, those hundreds and thousands of years when human beings were hunter-gatherers, when they survived by, scavenging, hunting, gathering, within those settings, democracy was practiced in some form. It was actually like the more natural political system amongst those people. They would organize themselves in such a way that they would have leaders chosen from amongst them who would then superintend the affairs of the people. However, as greater inequalities in wealth and military power started to show up between communities, so communities who, had more money, maybe because they did more farm produce, they devised muted.
Hello.
Okay. Can we hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, yes. So as more communities started to gain more wealth, maybe because they devised ways to be more productive and their size, their power increased, those communities saw themselves as powerful, and then they would just overrun another community that is not as rich, as powerful in terms of resources, whether it is market produce or military resources. And when I say military, of course, I don't mean the armored tanks and the machine guns and, those kind of equipment that we have now. I mean, whether it's a sophisticated spears and bows and arrows and, other forms of security that people had at the time. So the ones who could afford to do those things because they had more money or greater technology felt that we are stronger than these smaller ones, and then they would just overrun those smaller communities. So after a while, because as I said, democracy was like the more natural system of government, even amongst the primitive people. As the community sizes grew bigger, people grew stronger, the authoritarian tendencies of people, communities started to show. That is why if you look at history, even in, African history, you would see that people were sacking communities. They would just go and, they would declare that this place is now our place because they have greater might. That's how popular governments amongst settled peoples vanished. And this was replaced for thousands of years by governments that were based on, any of the systems of government that we looked at earlier, whether it's the monarchy, whether it's the aristocracy, oligarchy, or even autocracy. And then about 500 BC, conditions that would encourage democracy to thrive developed. And so people started to create democracy again in another form. That primitive democracy that people had back in the days was rebranded, reinvented to more advanced forms. And the places where these became, the champion democracy in the form that we know it to be today, were areas around the Mediterranean, talking about Rome and Greece. They are thought to be where democracy in the more advanced form started to take shape. And then other countries around Europe, the Mediterranean, started to adopt democracy, and it spread, beyond Europe to America, to Asia, and to the rest of the world, such that today, of the 195 countries of the world, about 167 practice democracy. Okay, so democracy has different variants, and we're going to just quickly look at the key ones. There is what is called the direct or participatory democracy. And that simply is a form of government in which the people themselves are involved in making all of the legislative decisions that concern them, instead of appointing representatives and delegating this power to those representatives. These direct or participatory democracy is thought to be the purest form of democracy. Examples in today's world of direct or participatory democracy are the referendums and the petitions. If you remember, sometime in 2014, there was the Scottish referendum. The Scottish referendum was about the people of Scotland deciding whether or not they should remain within the United Kingdom or be an independent country. And in that particular referendum in 2014, 55.3% of Scottish people voted no, meaning that they want to remain as a part of the UK, while 44.7% voted yes, which is the reason why Scotland is still under the United Kingdom today. That referendum is an example, the Scottish referendum is an example of what it means for the people themselves to be the ones deciding their fate. Another example, of course, more recent, is the Brexit. And the Brexit is basically the people of the United Kingdom and all the, the countries that make up the United Kingdom voting to decide whether to remain a part of the European Union, the EU, or to leave. So that's where the coinage, Brexit, exits, Britain exiting EU. That's how that coinage came about. And as we know, 51.9%, just above half of the people of the United Kingdom, voted to leave the EU, while 48% voted to stay, which is why today the United Kingdom is no longer part of the Schengen states. The Schengen states are, that's the bloc under the European Union. So Britain is now standing as a country outside of the Schengen or EU regions. It's the reason why today, if you get a Schengen visa, it doesn't give you the right to go into the United Kingdom because they're no longer part of the Schengen states. You would still require a separate visa issued by the UK government to be able to access their country. So these two examples, the Scottish referendum and the Brexit referendum, are examples of direct or participatory democracy where the people are actively involved in deciding on the matters that concern them. The second one, broadly speaking, the second variant of democracy is called the representative or indirect democracy. And that is a form of government in which legislation is enacted by representatives, of course, from amongst the people, elected by the people themselves. In contrast to the one that we looked at before, which is the more direct version, the majority of the people decide that a minority would act in their interests. So they hand over the power to make decisions for them to a small number of people. And those people, of course, are supposed to represent the interest of these majority that has handed the power to them. Whether that plays out in practice is another thing. So technically speaking, these are the variants of democracy, the main ones. There are other forms, other terminologies related to this. There's what is called liberal democracy. There's what is called social democracy, popular democracy. But broadly speaking, these are the main classifications when you're looking at variants of democracy: the direct and the representative or indirect democracy. Okay, let's now look at the comparative advantage of democracy versus other forms of government. First and foremost, democracy would not have survived as long as it has if the majority of the people or majority of governments believe that another form of government is better than democracy. Remember that I said that of the 195 countries that are recognized in the world, 193 are member states of the UN, only 2 are not. That's the Holy See, Vatican City, and Palestine. Of the 193 member states of the UN, 167 practice democracy. Why is that? I think the reason to be adduced to that is that all these governments do not think that another type of government offers more benefits for the majority of the people. Whether this is true in practice or not is down to individual experience or interpretation. And you are free to critique, these various forms of government. But we're talking about democracy now and the comparative advantage because it is what most of the countries in the world currently practice. So why do they choose democracy? Democracy is thought to prevent rule by autocrats, okay? Since democracy is ruled by the majority, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, it is thought to prevent one person or a few people from hijacking the machinery of the states and, just doing things for their own aggrandizement. This is, again, like I said, subject to individual experience and interpretation, because in practice, is that really the case? Okay. Democracy is also popular because it is thought to guarantee fundamental individual rights. Of course, in a country where the majority of the people decide how they want to be ruled and governed, it is hard for one person to now, arrest everything and make it all about themselves. Again, even though it is hard, if you look at the way democracy is practiced here or in several other countries, you will see that even in a democracy, you can still have forms of anarchism, you can still have forms of autocracy, and you can still have forms of oligarchy, even in a democratic setting. But generally speaking, it is thought, compared to the other ones, to guarantee fundamental individual rights more than the other ones. Democracy is thought to allow for a relatively high level of political equality. It is thought to foster better human development. So if you look at all the indices of development for a state, if you look at health, if you look at education, if you look at security, if you look at human rights, these are thought to be guaranteed for the majority of the citizen under a democracy than other forms of government that we have looked at. And of course, democracy is thought to provide more prosperity for citizens than any other form of government. Again, in practice, these is subject to individual experiences and interpretation, because even in a democratic states, we can still see some of the other forms of government still showing. As a matter of fact, there was a time in this country where we had a president who was away for quite a long time, and there were rumors as to whether the president was alive or not. During that time, it would seem that Nigeria was a rudderless state where, no one was in charge. Of course, we say Nigeria is a democracy, but even within that democracy, we have had situations where it feels like it's complete anarchy and there's nobody actually superintending the affairs of the state. Also, even in a democracy, we have found situations where the rich, as we see, even in the United States, the corporations putting together money to decide the party or the person that will emerge as president of a country, because they want their interests to be protected. So even in states that say we are a democracy, you can still see semblance of these other different forms of government there. But generally speaking, democracy is thought, as a system of government, is thought to guarantee better for the people than any other form of government. Do I believe so? Well, my personal opinion, I will keep it to myself for now, but this is something worth pondering based on, our experience or what we've seen and read about all these countries. It's up to us to, decide whether in actual sense, democracy does provide the best, or whether every country should practice democracy the way that it is being practiced today, or whether it should be tweaked to suit the circumstances in a particular country or geographical area. I personally lean towards countries tweaking their form of government in a way that works for them, instead of taking templates from other places and just copying everything hook, line, and sinker. But again, that's a personal opinion. Okay. I'd already started to talk about the challenges of democratic governance when I said that even though a lot of countries say they practice democracy, you will still see semblance of these other forms of government there. Look at Rwanda, for instance. Rwanda is one of the developing countries in Africa at the moment because of the leadership of Paul Kagame. But then people will argue that while Rwanda claims to practice a democracy, Paul Kagame is high-handed in the way that it handles the affairs of the country. Almost seems like there is no possibility for dissenting voices. There have been rumors that anybody or any group of persons that try to offer any resistance are silenced. And that is supposed to be a democracy. But are there things that are good about this style of government? Is the country developing in some ways? Yes. But in these developments that we see in education, in healthcare, in technology in Rwanda, are there other aspects or indices of a developed state where they are lagging behind? Yes, things like human rights of people, they're lagging behind. So it's like a give or take. Do we take this form of democracy practiced by, do the Rwandan people take this form of democracy practiced by Rwanda, that is democracy mixed, this is my word, democracy mixed with a sprinkle of autocracy, or do we practice pure democracy the way that, you know, it was intended to be, or that the way that the West touts it to the rest of the world? So these, again, subject to personal experiences and interpretation. So despite all of the advantages of democracy, these are some of the challenges that there are. Okay. Now, let us look at citizenship, because you cannot talk about democracy as a system of government without talking about citizenship. As a matter of fact, democracy and citizenship are two sides of the coin. It was a Latin American activist who said citizenship is very tied to the idea of democracy. Democracy is the first name and citizenship is the last name. I agree. Now, let's look at the concepts of citizenship, the modern day concepts of citizenship. The first we are looking at is the concept of citizens as users and consumers. The word citizens, or the concept of citizenship, started to gain traction around the 18th century. Those debates then were shaped around citizenship being about the rights and responsibilities of citizens as defined by the government. The rights and responsibilities of citizens weren't natural. They were determined by the government. The people didn't have much of a say. This was when the word citizenship started to gain traction. It was really more about what the government said was the role of a citizen in a country or geographical territory. A model citizen was one who displays trust, total trust and obedience. So the government says, move like this, you move, you don't question it. The government says, do this, and then you do it. The belief was that ordinary people are not in a position to make decisions that are in their own best interest. So somebody else, a leader, would determine what the place of the people would be and help them solve their problem. So at the start, in the 18th century, when citizenship started to become like a concept, the onus was on the leaders to tell the citizens what they would do. The citizens themselves weren't in a position to determine what their roles within the society was. But this concept gave way. This concept of citizens as users and consumers gave way to a different concept, which is citizens as shapers and makers. The advocates say that the problem is not that the people are not capable of making economic decisions or decisions about matters that concern them. These people say that it is the continued concentration of power in the hands of a few that is actually a greater danger. They believe that the more people are involved in decisions that affect them, the better the quality of life of the people. A document by the Institute of Development Studies, UK, reads, new approaches to social citizenship seek to move beyond seeing the state as bestowing rights and demanding responsibilities of its citizens. In doing so, they aim to bridge the gap between citizen and the state by recasting citizenship as practiced rather than given. Remember the previous ones, citizens as users and consumers. The rights and responsibilities of citizens is determined by the leaders. So their rights are not natural, but though they don't come to them naturally, the leaders give to them. But in this newer concept of citizens as shapers and makers, the relationship is recasted such that the citizens themselves have agency and are able to make decisions on the things that concern them. And this is, how citizenship has evolved over the years. Now, we will look at issues in modern day citizenship. Remember that we said that the very idea of citizenship is tied to democracy. And when you speak democracy, you're talking about the rights of most of the people being guaranteed, right? When we looked at the different forms of government, we said democracy is ruled by the majority, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So democracy technically is supposed to guarantee equality and universality, technically. However, in practice, as we will see, there are several challenges to these equality and universality that democracy and citizenship, as practiced today, is supposed to deliver. There are discrepancies, and we're going to look at some of them. The first challenge in modern day citizenship is the concept of individual versus collective identity. Take Nigeria as an example. We are a country of how many ethnic groups? I think about 250 ethnic groups, even more languages. In this class, let me look at the names of the people in this class. In this class, we have Adeshola, who I believe is Yoruba. Adeshola could well be Christian. We have Farid, who from the name is from the surname is Yoruba, but Muslim. We have Okpayemi. I don't know Okpayemi Omishore. I don't know if Okpayemi is Muslim or Christian. We have Peter. We have Nura Yakubu. So many different people from different backgrounds. So you can have somebody who is Yoruba and Christian, somebody who's Yoruba and Muslim. You can have somebody who's Igbo. Let me see any Igbo name, any clearly Igbo name here. Nwabweze Ignatius is an Igbo name. We have Esther Chinaza. That's an Igbo name. I mean, very rarely do you have Igbos who are Muslims, but it can happen, right? But then you can have an Igbo who is Christian. But then even within Christendom, you have different denominations. So you have, say, Esther, for instance, Esther being Pentecostal, and another Igbo person, which name did we look at before, who is Anglican or Catholic. So as you can see, even though they are both Igbos, they still have things that separate them. And even within the Igbo community, there are several languages, right? So we can be Igbos, but we still have things that separate us. We can be Fulani, Kanuri, Hausa, Tiv, whatever tribe. But as much as we have commonalities, we also have things that differentiate us from other people. Now, if we say democracy is about the interest of most people, given that we all have these different identities, how then can democracy or citizenship guarantee that the rights of everybody, every single person, remember, as we have commonalities, we also have difference. We're separated by class, we're separated by religion, we're separated by age. Today, there are even conversations around sexual preference, right? All of these are different distinguishing factors, even amongst people that are from the same ethnicity or tribe. So how then can a system of government guarantee that these people, with their variances, their rights, the rights of everyone, the rights of the Yoruba Muslim is protected, as well as the right of the Yoruba Christian? The right of the Hausa or Fulani Muslim is protected as much as the Hausa Christian, for instance, or people from the Middle Belt or people from the Niger Delta. How do we ensure that all of this, different distinguishing factors are catered to within a community? A big example to further explain what I mean with individual versus collective identity is, remember in the US, there was a time when a baker was approached by a gay couple and they wanted the baker to make cakes. I think they were going to wed, and they wanted the gay baker, the gay couple wanted the Christian baker to make their cake. And this Christian baker said, no, my religion does not support gay marriages. And if I provide this service to you, it would mean that I am encouraging this practice, which is against my religion. Now, people would argue, some people can argue, like the gay couple argue that they were being discriminated against because of their sexual preference, right? And if you look at it, aren't they part of the community? Don't they also have their rights? But while we're trying to defend their rights, the other question is, doesn't the Christian baker have a right to practice the religion according to the dictates of the religion? So you can see that in trying to protect the right of one, how do you ensure that you are not usurping the rights of the other? That's what we mean by individual versus collective identity. How can a system of government cater to every single person and their rights within a country or a geographical region? That is one of the biggest challenges of modern day citizenship. Today, we talk about LGBTQ. I think there's LGBTQI. We talk about all of this. And people in this community are saying, oh, you're discriminating against me. So if democracy is supposed to guarantee universality and that the rights of everybody within a geographical territory, a country, is protected, in practice, how do we really achieve this? Okay, so that is one of the challenges in modern day citizenship, the individual versus collective identity. The other challenge that I want us to look at is private life versus public life. And one of the examples I would give about this is a senator, a Nigerian senator from one of the northern states, at the floor of the House, is there claiming to be a champion of the people, a champion of women, probably sponsoring bills that would ensure equality for the sexes. Probably. I didn't say that actually happened. But then again, you find that this same person who is supposed to be a defender and a champion of the people, especially the vulnerable and the weak amongst us, went into a sex toy shop someday, and because he did not like the way he was attended to, by the salespeople, decided to assault them and use his security details to also assault the salespersons in this toy shop who happened to be women. Now imagine that person at the floor of the house presenting himself as a champion of the people, actually sponsoring bills that are supposed to, protect the girl child, ensure that the vulnerable in society are protected. This is public life, right? And then in private, is there abusing the same women that is professing in public to be defending? How do you reconcile private life versus public life when it comes to the practice of citizenship? And let's not even go too far. Sometimes, and I have seen this, it happened to a friend of mine. She's an Igbo lady, beautiful lady back in medical school then, and she was dating a guy who was Yoruba and a Muslim. And at some point, when they decided they wanted to take this further, the girl's parents, who were professors, the father was a professor, a well-known professor, said, over my dead body, will I allow my Igbo daughter to marry a Yoruba Muslim man? And now this father is somebody renowned and respected and kind and everything. But when it came to his daughter being married to somebody not from his tribe or religion, he would not accept. How then do you guarantee fairness, in every circumstance? This is another example of, public, what we do, how we present in public versus in private. Another example that I have is a friend of mine who's two people in church. One, an Igbo woman, the other one, a Yoruba woman. And both of them, brother, sister, they got along really, really fine. In fact, they consider themselves not just church members, they consider themselves family. But it so happened that their children started to get involved. Now, these same people that consider themselves one, and maybe when they would even preach in church, they would say, we're all one, we're all one. When it came down to their own children becoming an item, they both resisted. What happened to that oneness that they were preaching? What happened to all of that? We see this also play out in our workplaces. How many of us will decide to give opportunities for employment or for contracts to people that are from our own tribe, our own religion, as against people who are actually qualified for those jobs? How many? Let us search ourselves and we'll see that these are actually the issues that we're dealing with. We can mouth and profess in public that yes, we are honest, we are just, we are fair. But then in private, what do? Take, for example, a religious leader. You go to church, you preach, love and unity and forgiveness. And then in the house, you are beating your wife. You are starving your children of attention. And then you come to the pulpit or to the mosque, and then you are talking to the people about the importance of love, of being responsible. Meanwhile, in your house, you're doing horrible things. You are molesting children in church behind. And then you are coming outside and you are professing to be this, So these are some of the challenges, because when we talk about citizenship, it should be about what is best for everybody. And it should not be different, whether it is in public or in private. Examples that I gave here: male-related problems due to parental neglect, violence against women in the workplaces, and attitudes that some of us exhibit, attitudes that enable social vices. I talked about tribalism. I talked about workplace favoritism. All of these things are examples of the challenges that we face when we talk of democracy, when we talk of citizenship, because democracy is supposed to guarantee the well-being and the rights of the majority of people. How do we, in practice, ensure that it does just that? Okay, let's look at one more challenge, issues in modern day citizenship. Societal context matters when you're talking about citizenship, and it is important to recognize this from different climes. So in South Africa, especially during the period of the apartheid, when you define who a good citizen is, you usually say a good citizen, because of their experience, because of the peculiar experience, a good citizen is one who actively fights racism. If you're not, because of the experience, again, that they had, you are not really considered a good citizen. In Russia, being a good citizen is associated with economic liberalism, and individual self-reliance is valued over collective actions. And in countries that have seen a lot of conflict, South Sudan, Israel, places like Palestine, Gaza Strip, places like that, a good citizen is seen as one who seeks peaceful resolutions to issues and reconciliations. So how people look at what a model citizen should be can vary slightly from societal context to context. But generally speaking, democracy and citizenship, good citizenship, should guarantee the rights of the majority of the people and should ensure prosperity for most of the people. Okay, so what makes a good citizen? I haven't looked at these challenges in practice. What makes a good citizen? A good citizen should be informed and aware of social, economic, and political issues. Nigerian Idol just finished, and I'm sure that some of us, stayed tuned to that. We voted for our favorite person to win. I understand this time my help here is a fan of Nigerian Idols, and she would watch it and she would keep me updated on what is happening and all of that, which is all well and good. Big Brother is around the corner, and I'm sure a lot of people here would also be watching it. I have absolutely no problem if this is what does it for you. A lot of people watch Z World, a lot of people watch Telemundo. These days, we spend a lot of time on Netflix, with Netflix and chill, what different movies. All of these things, as long as they make you happy and they're not hurting anybody, is good. But a model citizen should do much more than this. In addition to enjoying all of these things, watch Big Brother, watch this, do that, all of those many nice things that you do, you should make it a point of duty to be informed about what is happening around you. If I ask people in this class today, you probably know the name of the governor. Maybe I'll give you that, the governor of your state. Everybody knows the name of the president. If I ask your local government chairman, do you know the name of the person? How many people sincerely in this classroom know the names of their chairman? We're interested in a lot of things, but when it comes to politics and things that concern our collective good, we are not as interested. A good citizen, in addition to all of those, again, nothing wrong with, if you like any of these things, nothing wrong. I like karaoke. I go to karaoke. I sing. I like watching crime on crime and investigation. Yes, I like watching those things, right? But as much as we do these things that we enjoy, we also have to make ourselves informed about what is happening. And one of the first things we can do is to at least know the names of the representatives, our local representatives, know where the office of the LCDA chairman is. If there are issues within the place where you live, where do you channel, complaints and suggestions? We should make that our business as much as we make those other things our business. A good citizen fosters tolerance and respect for human rights in all relationships and institutions. By this, it doesn't mean when people are fighting, necessarily go there and put yourself in harm's way and let them break your head. First and foremost, make sure you are in a safe place. And if you are not law enforcement, don't go and put yourself between people that have knives and guns and say you are being a good citizen. That's not what I'm talking about. That's being reckless. The best you can do in that circumstance is to report it to the nearest law enforcement people. I'm talking things as simple as your friend is fond of circulating materials, for instance, child pornography, which of course is illegal. Or maybe somebody's sex video has leaked and you are there on one person's Facebook page begging, I beg, send me that video, send me that video, send me that video. What exactly are you looking for in somebody's unauthorized video? A good citizen should shut those things. And when people are sending them to you, educate them and say, no, this is against the rights of that person because that person has not given permission for their videos to be spread all over the place. Yes, we know that some stupid people do things as what is called revenge porn. We're good. We make these videos of ourselves because we are good and we love each other. And then when things go south, somebody decides to punish the other person by releasing their videos. We know that these actions are illegal. Why then are we on different people's pages begging, I beg, send me that video, I beg, send me that video? A good citizen should call people's attention to things like that and say, even when they send unsolicited, tell them, please don't send me things like this. Why do we get a hard-on from, people's misery? Why? If it was your sister whose video was leaked, would you be in such a hurry to be either begging for it or circulating it to other people? Let's consider that. So a good citizen should foster tolerance and respect for human rights. Respect for human rights is part of the things I'm talking about. I remember a while back, a comedian came on stage, and in a bid to make people laugh, he started to pick on people that had one kind of challenge or the other, maybe the Down syndrome community, and then he will go, make fun. And it's supposed to make people laugh, and people are laughing. But what did we say about democracy? What did we say about citizenship? We said it should protect the rights of the people, majority of the people, including the most vulnerable amongst us. When we have platforms that we can use to educate, and we're using those platforms to shame people, then we are not being good citizens. As a matter of fact, we are enabling people who are bad amongst us. Another example I like to give when I take this class, when I teach this class, is influencers and what they do on their platforms. Everybody knows Tunde Ednot. I don't know if he still does it, because at some point I found a lot of his content distasteful, so I stopped to, blocked anything that had to do with him. But of course, somehow things will still get to you somehow, maybe through third parties. At some point, he used to do something he called smash or pass, where he will put the picture of a beautiful girl, and his audience are supposed to say whether, they would like to have sex with the person, or the person is ugly and doesn't deserve their attention. Now, that is objectifying women or men. And a lot of us will go there, smash, pass. Or even when we're not thinking of, when we don't find them attractive, we body shame them. Look at this one, seeing Belesi. How is that protecting the rights and the dignity of majority of the people amongst us? So we see how even in our own ways, somehow because of our actions and our inactions, we are enabling some of the vices amongst us. Or how many times do guys misbehave and then we use the expression, boys will always be boys, instead of calling out our fellow men? And this is to men. I'm not saying women don't do their own things. I'll come to that. Instead of calling out our fellow men, we say boys will always be boys. When we say boys will always be boys, what we're invariably saying is that it is acceptable behavior, but we should shut our friends down when they do stuff. Sometimes my friends send me stuff, either on Instagram, and if I see that this thing dishonors women or paints women in a bad light, instead of responding and putting the laughter emoji, I will put angry face. Or I will tell my guy, I beg, no send me this kind of thing again. Sometimes we're there in the beer parlor, we're drinking and we're chatting about different things, and we see our friends saying things that put down a section of society, whether it is women, whether it is a particular tribe, whether it is a particular group of people that have a certain challenge. And we laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh at those things. As responsible citizens, we should be able to tell our friends that, no, this thing that you're doing is not right, because we should actually be looking out for the most vulnerable amongst us. This is what good citizenship should be about. And this point is related to the next one here, concerned about taking steps to combat disadvantage and injustice. That's what I've been speaking about. Promoting collective action and a collective spirit, participating in community and national affairs. Now, all of us can be politicians, but if there are issues that affect us, let us not keep quiet. Let the only thing we are commenting about not be Big Brother and Nigerian Idol. Let us also comment about leadership issues. Let us comment about the killings in different parts. Let us comment about banditry. Let us make noise, because our voices count, especially in this day and age, this social media era. We have power as citizens, and if we use that power well, we can force change. It may take a while, but if we collectively continue to lend our voice to the social issues, the political issues that affect us, over time, it will form a critical mass that will force the change that we need. A good citizen should promote participatory democracy in politics. So yes, I talked about public versus private life. A good citizen is not one that is only recognized as such in public. What do you do in private? How do you treat your co-workers? How do you treat your subordinates? How do you treat your wife? How do you treat your husband? How do you treat your children? How do you treat your girlfriend? So you can't mouth being a good citizen. You can't just be a good citizen at some times. You have to be a good citizen all the time. So in public as well as in private. So it's important to align our actions so that, you know, wherever they see us, our integrity stands. And the final thing I want to say about what makes a good citizen, a country like Nigeria, every country has its challenges, right? But Nigeria is so peculiar, and very many times, and I'm speaking honestly as somebody who lives and works here, the country can be so frustrating. So frustrating that it's easy to lose hope completely. I mean, this is a country where you provide your own security, you provide your own power. You can't even get some things except you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Merit is lost on many people in this country. Connections mean more than talent. All of these things can frustrate you, and it can put us in a state where we are hopeless. We do not believe that any change or any good can come out of the country. And I know, understandably, a lot of people are in this position. But you see, what that mindset does is that even the actions that you should take, actions that are within our control, that are not like, you know, dependent on government, we don't take them because we already are defeated internally by everything that is happening, and we do not have faith or hope that anything will get better. So those little steps that we can take to make things better, we don't have the motivation to make them. So what I am asking all of us, because we're all experiencing this, it doesn't matter whether you are Christian or Muslim, from the north or the south, east or west, everyone Nigerian is experiencing this in some way, maybe in varying degrees. But I want to urge us all, even if it's a little shred of hope, let us hold on to it, because it is only when you have that shred of hope that something can indeed change, things can indeed get better, that is when you can take any action, any meaningful action towards that change. So I urge everyone, I know that this country has shown many of us pepper. This country has shown us pepper. But please let us not give up on Nigeria. In our own area of influence, let us try to do whatever we can to bring about change. I will end my presentation shortly. I already talked about what is expected of us, how to be good citizens, building active citizen advocacy, following on what I have already said. Yes, within your flare of influence, for instance, somebody like Tunde Ednor that has a large following, what is he doing? How is he making life better for people of Nigeria through his platform? And we don't have to be Tunde Ednots. We don't have to have the kind of following that he has. I have talked about our own sphere of influence. When you're with your friends, the ladies, when you are at the salon making your hair and you're having all those gossip and somebody is saying something that puts other people down, what do? Do you laugh? Do you laugh it off? Or do you respectfully educate those people why those things or those comments about those people are wrong? Us guys, when we're having those drinks, when we're watching football matches, and our friends are doing or say or calling, tapping a girl's ass because she's a waiter, they are tapping her ass, and we're all laughing instead of calling the person out. Those are areas where we can do something. We don't have to be politicians. We don't have to be influencers in that sense of the word, in terms of like having large followings. Each of us can make a difference in the small places where we have people. It could be within our families. It could be with our work colleagues, with our friends, in our churches, in our social gatherings. Each of us has a role to play in building active citizen advocacy and the kind of place that we would love to live and love our children to grow up in, the kind of values that we want them to have, respectful values, of course. In building active citizen advocacy, it's important to promote civic education and advocacy training, which is why what we're doing here, I commend Electoral College for this programs, because these educates us as to our roles as citizens and how we can contribute to development of our nation. But it should not just only be at platforms like this. In schools, from primary school to secondary school, even to the universities, citizenship education should be a compulsory part of our curriculum. And even in our places of work, because we do not exist in a silo, right? We are all members of a community. All of the governors, the presidents, they came from amongst us. They're not spirits. All of the people doing bad things in our country today, they are not spirits. They are from amongst us, right? So everywhere where we congregate, whether it is in the schools, in the workplaces, there should be some form of civic education and advocacy training, because it is only when we are informed and aware and we do our parts that we can bring about change in our society. And finally, in building active citizen advocacy, it is important to pursue broad-based citizen action. You know what they say about a single broom? If you take out a stick of broom and you break it, easy to break. But if you have like a whole bunch, it's very difficult to break. And if one person is speaking about something and other people have the same passion or have the same concerns about that issue, and together we put our voices together as a block, align with other people or NGOs that care about the same thing, and we come out to become pressure groups, to pressure the policymakers, pressure the government into making change. If we join our voices together, the chances of the people in authority listening to us and making the necessary changes are higher than if we're speaking as lone voices. So in order to be active, to build active citizen advocacy, we should look for areas of alignment, look for people who have common goals, and try to come together and push our agendas together, because that way is the only way that we can force our way and let the people who matter and can take action know about these issues and force them to take action. Electoral College, beyond this platform, I know that our director, I see him on TV, which is great, talking about some of these issues that affect us all. It's important to use platforms like the media, but if we can also have platforms where we actually engage with policymakers, that would be great as well. And I'm not just talking the leadership of EC, I'm talking all of us, whatever areas where we have influence, it's important to, push our weight, because it's only when we jointly push that we can bring about change faster. Finally, advocacy that is geared to building citizenship and reshaping political culture draws heavily on the theory and practice of participation and popular education. A new practice of citizen leadership requires an integrated strategy involving participatory education processes to build people's ability to analyze their reality and internalize their rights as citizens. It also takes new alliances, that's what I was talking about, and broad-based democratic organizations that tap the power of working together, as well as respecting and using people's differences. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our class for today, with Adeshola's guide and lead. We probably can take a few comments and then questions, if any. Over to you, Adeshola.
All right. Quite interesting lecture there. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. Right now, we'll go into questions, and I see 2 hands already. I would ask Dushu Domdak Peter to speak, and then after I'll have Zainab. So Peter, I've asked you to unmute, please.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. We can hear you.
Good evening, Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very wonderful presentation, and I've been very, very keen listening to you, and I love the presentations, and I feel so enlightened this evening. My question is, you define democracy perfectly, and I want to look at it in a practical sense to our situations in Nigeria. In practice, it seems that there seems to be a misnomer, laying emphasis on democracy as freedom of expression, freedom of associations, the government of the people by the people. And what our system seems as if our democracy seems to be abused. When you look at it, it's characterized by a lot of misnomers, problems, insecurities everywhere. Now, how do we match this? Are we really practicing the real democracy as you perfectly define? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Tony, do you want to take one after the other, or
yes, one after the other, so I don't forget.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the contribution, the comment, and the question. I did say that of the 195 countries of the world, 193 of them being member states of the United Nations, 167 practice democracy. And that's because that can only be because most of the governments believe that democracy offers the best value for the majority of the people. But remember the slide that we looked at. I did say that in spite of the advantages of democracy, there are also lapses, challenges of democracy. And I did say that whether practicing democracy as the West practices it is ideal for every country in the world is open to personal experience and interpretation. Personally, and this is a personal opinion, I do not feel that democracy as it has been presented to us should be the same copy and paste template everywhere. I believe that the sensibilities, nuances, within a particular area, the culture, all of these things should have a role to play in the system of governance that we adopt. So maybe a refinement of democracy as it is promoted by the West is a certain variant of that might be ideal. And this is my personal opinion, instead of the way that it is being sold to us. Because what works for one, what is ideal within a context, given the culture of the people and all of that, may not be ideal in another context. So I don't think it should be something fixed and forced. I think different people's communities should be able to come up with the system of governance that works best for them, as long as it guarantees the rights of the most people and prosperity for most of the people. So there's no right or wrong answer. It is subject to personal experience and interpretation, Peter. I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does. All right, so I'll go ahead and ask Zainab to unmute now.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening. I really enjoyed your presentation, especially how you explained patriotism and citizenship in such a way that we change our mindset and our negativities. So this is something that I wanted to ask. I remember I also asked something similar in the previous lesson. How do we as young people advocate for the change of mindset? Because it's a very difficult thing. We prefer to just be saying our leaders are bad, without checking our own self, seeing the vices that we also contribute towards the country. So how do we advocate for the change of such mindset that as Nigerians, lots of Nigerians have with regards to these issues that you have mentioned? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Again, we don't need to all be politicians. We don't need to all be major influencers. We all have our own sphere of influence. Let's start from our immediate families. Let's start from our friends, right? Let's all, in fact, before we even talk about other things, let's start from ourselves. Are we being model citizens ourselves? Are we doing things that elevates other people around us as well as our community? Are you one of those people who will go and then you will buy gala on the street, you will eat, and then you throw it inside out of the car, or you throw it in the gutter? Because if you are part of the people who do this, you may not do it consciously, but indirectly you're contributing to the problems that we have. And then would say that, oh, Lagos is dirty. Oh, this state is dirty. Oh, our drainages are blocked. But we don't remember that the little actions that we do, those actions have a ripple effect. They contribute to the rot that we see in a society. So to answer your question, Zainab, in your own small area, starting with yourself, what can you do differently that elevates yourself, the people around you, your community? Start from there. And then if as many of us as possibly can, because not all of us, again, can be politicians, can walk our way into, bigger positions where we can influence more people, influencers amongst us. Let's use our platform. We have people following us. Let's use our platform to correct ills. Let's not only use it for entertainment. Let's not only use it for, fun purposes. Let's also use it to educate and enlighten and to correct, So yes, there's no perfect answer, but all I can say in answer to your question is, in the places where you are, with your people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, do what you can to bring about meaningful change. And these changes, they might be small. When somebody is sharing revenge porn with you, or when somebody is sharing a joke that's that is putting people with Down syndrome or some challenge, or dwarfs, or I'm not even sure the term dwarf is today acceptable. So if it's unacceptable today, I apologize. I don't mean to offend anybody's sensibilities. I'm only trying to draw attention to, some of those things that we do. Sometimes we don't even know, and we are putting a certain group of people down. We're sharing these things and we're laughing at them. If we stop to laugh at them, then you're already doing something. By even stopping to laugh, by not laughing at them, you're already doing something. Go a step further by telling the person sending you the stuff that, no, this is not the kind of stuff you should be circulating because it puts a certain section of society down. Those are small ways that we can make changes. And as many of us as have the passion for public service and can make it into those higher positions where we can actually influence public policy and contribute on a larger scale to governance, I want to encourage as many people as have that passion to please go for it. But again, let's start small within our own areas of influence. I hope that answers it, Zainab.
Yes, it does. So I'll take Ejike, after which I'll ask Patrick quickly so that we can wrap up on time. So Ejike, I've asked you to unmute, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening,
good evening. Can you hear me?
Ejike, good evening. Go ahead.
All right. Nice presentation, sir.
Thank you.
So my question, you talk about referendum. Yeah, my question, give examples. I don't know whether we have referendum in Nigerian constitution. And if we have, is there any time we put it in use, or we don't have such? If actually our democracy is can be compared with the rest of the world that have such.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good question. Very, very good question. And if I told you that I had the right answer, I would be lying. But here's something that I know. I know that we have been pushing for, some sections of the society have been pushing for something close to a referendum, which is a national confirm. I'm sure some of you have been hearing about it for years. Some sections of society who think it's important for the different people that make up this country to come together and renegotiate the terms of our existence as a country. Whatever constitution we have that were handed over to us by colonial masters, is that constitution still relevant today? Are there things that we can do differently? The only way that we can really make any real change is by having a platform like that national confab or national conference where different people representing different ethnic groups that make up this country can come together and speak honestly about their challenges and what they expect out of these experiments called Nigeria. And until we do that, I don't think we can say that what we are practicing is democracy in its purest form, and it will not benefit the most of us this way until we have leaders that are actually ready to go that way and do the sovereign national conference or national confirm, as it were. About the referendum, I'm not able to answer that now, but I want to believe that our constitution allows for the different groups that make up our country to come together, not in any way that can jeopardize our peace as a people, but to constructively critique the way we have always done things and try to find ways that we can do things better in the interest of most people. That's all I can say for now. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Very well done and answered. Aka Patrick Igba. I've asked you to unmute, please. Patrick? Okay, sorry about that. Please unmute again.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening,
Good
Patrick.
evening.
And I'm sorry if you can't see me. That's because Nigeria happened and power went out. That's why you can't see me.
I can understand. Thank you. Okay, yeah, please, my own is this. When I've looked at democracy as being practiced, particularly in Nigeria, and I feel that democracy does not seem to be delivering, at least in respect of what you earlier said in the lecture that democracy guarantees, it takes care of the good of the majority, so to speak. Because when you look around the world, particularly the Arab nations of North Africa, the Middle East, West Asia, and some of these emerging Asian tigers, when you look at the likes of Russia, the likes of North Korea, the likes of some of these nations, China. 50 years ago, China was a poor country, So when you look at these nations, we talked about 193 nations under the United Nations, and just a microscopic few, not practicing democracy. Now, pick out, identify those countries, keep them aside. Look at where they were 50 years ago and where those nations are today. And then you begin to ask yourself, you begin to ask certain questions about the kind of democracy we have as regards, dealing with, providing those deliverables, those, things that Nigerian people need to have a good life. Let me give you a very good example. Few days ago, about 5 days ago, our immediate president passed on in London. We even got to know that one of his predecessors, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, was also admitted in that same hospital. How come we have found ourselves in a situation where people rule this country for as long as 8 years or more or so, and then they claim to have done well, and they can't even provide hospitals that can take care of even themselves, let alone others. So what am I trying to say in essence is that how do we as citizens come together and see that we make democracy to deliver those things that we want and need?
Thank you very much, Patrick. All the points that you raised are very valid. And I did say that even though democracy is practiced by majority of these countries and it is academically, practically, I don't know, thought to deliver more value for most of the people, it doesn't mean, I personally don't think that it means that it is the best that there is. But for it to have survived this long and for the number of countries that have adopted it to keep their democracy, it would mean that in comparison to other systems of government, it is delivering value for the people. But should we all just continue like that without reassessing whether the system government is working for us? No. The fact that 167 of 195 are doing it doesn't mean that we should continue to do it. If there are other ways, maybe variants of democracy that can work better for us, I think we should be open to having those conversations and actually trying. Now, the countries that you mentioned in South Asia, it's true. Some of these countries are doing great. In the Middle East are doing great, and they're not practicing democracy. So that's just to say that, yes, even though most practice it, it doesn't guarantee, that every country will benefit from it in the same way. Now, those other countries that are doing great, they may be doing great in certain indices, healthcare, education, but how about justice systems? Are there people being repressed? Are they allowing freedom of expression? No, so would you rather have freedom of expression and not have education and good roads and quality air? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm not speaking for or against, but I'm saying this is a conversation that should be continuously had. We should be assessing the system, countries should be assessing the systems of government that they practice, and the people should be deciding whether they are getting the benefits that they're expected to get from it. And if they're not getting the benefit from that system of government, they should either vary how they practice it or find another system completely. I don't believe that everyone has to practice it exactly the same way. The only thing that is important is that whatever we decide to accept or to practice, it should guarantee the rights of most of the people and prosperity for most of the citizens. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have a hard stop at 7, so I see only 4 hands now. We will try and take those 4 hands alone, and we would wrap it up. Adeyemi Blessing, I've asked you to unmute.
Good evening, our facilitator, and for the interesting presentation, sir. Really appreciate, sir.
Good evening, Adeyemi.
Yes, sir. Now, I will want to make an observation and a question. The democracy system of government we are practicing, and based on your experience, and the military system, which was taken away from, which we were practicing before. Now, how can we place them together, and which is even much better? Because I believe in the military system then. In the military system then, things were still working out. Though there are a lot of corruptions and the likes, but then there are still a lot of things there are good facilities, there are education system was going on as expected. Even the health sector. Then since the transition to the democracy aspect, it has been the other way around. And secondly, the issue of democracy, most of us especially are making abuse. How can this be controlled? I want to cite an example, the social media aspect. If you look at Facebook and a lot of social applications today, the way people use freedom of speech, the way it is being abused, then you realize even the democracy aspect, is it really helping? And how can this actually be controlled? Even if we are practicing the democracy we are calling democracy today.
Thank you very much, Adeyemi Blessing. The points you've raised are very, very, very valid. Again, there is no right or wrong answers, right? What do people judge countries on? There are certain universally accepted indices, like education. How much access to the people of that country, of a country, have to education? What is the quality of the education? Healthcare. How much access do they have? Again, for the poor, most vulnerable people, do they have access? And what is the quality of care? Law and order, security of lives and property, human rights, all of these are universally accepted indices for measuring the success of a state or a country. Now, in a military regime or an autocratic regime, you can excel in some of these indices. Say, for example, education or order, law and order. But then again, in things like human rights, how are you faring? So again, these are conversations that we have to have. What are the things that are important for us? An ideal system of government should be one that does well on most of the indices. Now, can we say if there are 10 indices, if we have this 10 on lockdown and we are doing bad in the area of justice and fairness and human rights, can we say that that is good enough for us as a people? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So there is no answer that I can give you that I can tell, that anyone can give you that can say, yes, this is better than this. But whatever system that a people decide to adopt, at least on most of the universally accepted indices of development, let it be that on most of them we are doing. I don't think we're doing the best we can. I don't think there's any states that has 100% on all indices. I don't think so. But as much as possible, let the system of government deliver for most of those people across all of those lines. So I can't tell you military is good or bad. I have seen countries where that are almost autocratic and they are doing well in a lot of areas, but their citizens are complaining that they don't have freedom of expression. So what do we say? Do we give them a pass mark because their technology is great and their schools are great? Do we give them a pass mark when their citizens cannot even talk? Do we give them a pass mark when people who have dissenting voices or opinions are being put in prison? So these are conversations that we need to continuously have and evaluate what works best. And I think the best way to determine this is, as a people, all of us that are affected, which is why, when somebody asked the other time about Nigeria referendum and all of that, I said the closest I know to that is a sovereign national conference or a national confab, where all of the different peoples in the country are represented. I'm not just talking ethnic groups. I'm also now talking different blocks of people, people with disabilities. When we're making laws and our constitution and policies, do we consider them in this? So our system of government should be representative of the different blocks that we have, and we should try our best to ensure that that happens. And until we do that, we cannot say that what we are practicing offers the best life for the majority of our people. Again, no wrong or right answers. These things are open to continuous discussion and evaluation. And I think it's the way it should be. We should not be stuck on one way of doing things. We should, even if it's working, let's assess it and see if we can make it work better. That's all I can say on that subject. Thank you.
All right. Boyega Peter, we've asked you to unmute.
Oh, sorry. Before Boyega, sorry, Boyega, before you go ahead, on what you said about social media and how people use it, Ifeanyi Chukwu Roy had put a message in the chat box. He said content creation by the creators really need to be regulated and monitored. I agree that some form of regulation is important, not censorship or public discourse, but some form of regulation. And I think some of the social media platforms actually had that until a certain person became president of a certain country, and some of these people that had those checks and balances decided to remove them. Now it seems like those platforms, people can just go and spill anything. Roy says it's doing more damage than good to the society at large. So yes, social media should be used more responsibly. And again, when we say social media, are we talking about spirits? No, we're talking about you and I. We're talking about our brothers and sisters, our friends. And if we can decide to use it responsibly and tell people in our sphere of influence to also do the same, that's the only way we can sanitize the system and bring about the kind of change that we want. Okay, Oyola Boyega, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I have a few questions, and some tends to be your personal opinion, while some actually tends to be on a general note. So I'll run you quickly because of our time. My number one question is, can a country like ours still call itself a democratic, seeing that with your statistics, it's more like the majority of the citizens are not politically inactive. Let me say many of them are uninformed. So can we really, in the rich sense of your definition of democracy and the way it ought to be, not the way it's been, can we really say that the country is still democrat? And then my next question, I would like you to make it like your own perspective. Who truly holds power in democracy? The voters, the elected, or the means of exchange, which is in our own case money? That is my question number two. Then question number three is, if citizenship includes rights and responsibilities, which one should we talk about the more? I know both are vital, but I'm saying which one is in the scale of preference, which one should come much more and why? Is it the right or is it the responsibility? And then let me just
I
make
think
this
I
the
think
final.
I think three is okay because we have two more hands so
Okay,
that we can accommodate others. Is that okay? Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. The first thing you said is thank you again for that, Boyega Peter. The first thing you said is whether or not we're practicing the democracy. We can say we're practicing the democracy. I did say that even though us and several other countries of the world say what we are practicing is a democracy, in practice, you will see like semblance of autocracy, anarchism, or oligarchy, even in what we say is a democracy. I mean, as I said during the presentation, there was a time in this country where we were not even sure whether our president was alive or not. And this is not the first time. I mean, it happened in the recent past. It happened at the time. Remember during Yar'Adua's time, we were not sure who was running the country. Was he alive? Was he dead? It was not until Dora, the late Dora Akunyili, came and shouted that they eventually said, okay, he was sick and he died. At some point, it seemed like it. I don't know for certain, but because information wasn't really readily available, it seemed that there was nobody in charge up until the time Dora Akunyili made so much noise about it. We also saw the same during Buhari's government, gone for months, and the citizens weren't even sure at some point whether he was alive or dead. There were several theories going around. Now we say we practice a democracy, but isn't that anarchism? Isn't that like a state where it seems like there's nobody running the affairs of the state? So if you ask me what we are practicing, it's hard to say that what we are practicing. I don't think anyone, looking at Nigeria can say what we're practicing is democracy as the West practices it. Democracy should also be about devolution of powers. There should be separation of powers between the legislative arm of the government, the executive arm of the government, and the judicial arm of the government. And this is what makes most democracies work, because you have this devolution of powers and checks and balances in place. There was a time in this country where you could say to a certain degree that you had a Senate, a legislative arm that was strong, that was not, a rubber stamp legislative arm of government. They actually put the executive arm on their toes. There was a time when it seemed like the judiciary in this government was independent. But can we say that right now? Can we honestly say that right now the legislative arm of the government and the judicial arm of the government are independent of the executive arm of government? I do not think so. I don't know. Your opinion might be different. All this to say that it's hard to say that what we practice in Nigeria is democracy the way that it should be practiced. Again, this is subject to personal experience and also interpretation. So my view may be different from yours, and that's all well and good. Let me jump to the last thing you said about rights and responsibilities. I believe that both are equally important. One isn't more important than the other. You cannot be asking for rights as a citizen if you are not willing to be responsible as well. I cannot be saying the government owes me a clean state where all the drainages are working and there's no clog in the gutters, when I am not willing to be responsible, when every time I eat gala, this is not advert for gala, by the way, but it's like the only relatable example I can think of, or biscuit wrapper, or sweet, or all those people that drink squaddy, all those conductors and people like those sachet, and then you throw them, and then you expect to have rights when you are not ready to be responsible. So rights should be balanced with responsibility. And it is only countries that balance this the same way you need to balance powers between the different arms of government. It's only when these are balanced that the best of us can be realized. I hope that that answers it. Again, I'm not an expert at these issues, and I'm only sharing my personal opinion with you. And on other platforms, it will be interesting to hear other people's views about these things as well. But I know we don't have enough time to do that now. Yeah.
No, we don't. So quickly, Usman Baba. Quickly, please.
Good evening. Thank you so much for such an elaborate lecture. Yes, my question is this. Is it more patriotic to defend our country's image or to expose its flaws so it can improve? Thank you.
That's a very, very beautiful question. Now, every country of the world has its fair share of problems. If you think of America now, you think gun violence. If you think of, that's if you are looking for problems, right? If you think of America, you think gun violence, you think segregation against the Black people. If you think of the UK, you think knife violence. If you think of India, you think rape and abuse of women. But as much as these countries have these vices or negativities, you also think of America and you think, well, I don't know about the current America, but the America that, you know, some of us grew up knowing, you would think, oh, well, this is the land of the free and the land of the brave, right? You would think freedoms that the people enjoy. You would think of prosperity for the most of the people. If you think India, apart from the problems, you think, oh, technology, medicine. If you think China, you think, wow, logistics, production, technology, all of those, they have it. But then they also have those smaller problems, right? So I think as a responsible citizen, it's the same answer that I would give with regards to other questions that have been asked. There should be a balance. We do not want to hide the flaws that we have as a people, because the more we keep silent about, you know, the vices or the things that are going wrong, the more we are encouraging the people who do these things to continue doing them. But as much as we're calling out the things that are wrong, when things are good, let us also proudly proclaim those things. It's the kind of relationship I have with my kids as well. If my kids do something wrong, I will chastise them. I will talk to them about it. I'll call them out about it. But in equal measure, if they do something good, I will praise them to high heavens, so that what they remember is not just me constantly complaining about stuff. They remember that when they do good, I'm also praising them to the high heavens. So it's a mix. And you can call out the flaws of the country in a bid, if as long as you're doing it not to ridicule the country, but to be able to instigate or trigger action, remedial action or change. It is all well and good. But as you do that, when there are things to be celebrated, also try to celebrate those things as well. And that's what other countries of the world do. They celebrate the good things that they have, and through different platforms, they also call out things that are wrong, especially when it has to do with their leadership. I hope that answers it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it does. And finally, Jabez. Jabez, I've asked you to unmute, please. Let's see if he's ready. If not, we can just call it a day.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Okay, Jabez, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the lecture. It was really a great lecture. My own is an opinion. I'm of the opinion that democracy for us is still the best bet we have at achieving development as a people. And I'm saying that because if you check most of the countries that practice other forms of government, it's deeply rooted in their culture. Like for China, they had this system they called Confucianism, which was deeply rooted in their culture. That's why what they practice worked for them. And you can imagine if in a democracy, we still have challenges of rule of law. Imagine what will happen if we say we are going to practice a totalitarian form of government. You can just imagine what will happen. So I still feel that democracy is still the best form for us. What we just need to do is to double down on what we are doing, which is an example is this political literacy. We should double down on educating more people to get involved in the government, because at the very least, every 4 years, we have an opportunity to change a government that does not work. And whether it works that every 4 years or not is a different conversation. But I feel if more people get involved, someday, somehow, we'll get it right. So I still maintain that
Thank you very much,
democracy can
Jabez.
still work for us.
Yes, that's a very, very great contribution. There's nothing more I'd like to add to that. Thank you very much. Before I hand over to you, Adeshola, I just want to acknowledge all of the people that dropped comments. Unfortunately, I can't respond to everyone, but I want to thank you for all the comments. I see them. I want to particularly call a shout out to Usman Akobi Usman. No, sorry, to Oluwatosin David, who said the chairman of his LCDA, Ifako local government, is Usman Akobi Usman. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you know your chairman. Abiodu Adebesintu said there, the chairman is of Ijebode is Dare Alebioshu. Very, very, very good. More of us should learn who our LCDA people are, because that's like the first point of engagement that we can have before the states and then the federal level. So it's important. It's a start. To just round up, all of us have a role to play, and every little thing that we are able to contribute goes a long way in shaping the kind of society that we want and bringing about meaningful change. Let's not give up hope. I know Nigeria, as I said before, can drive us crazy and all of that, but please, I urge you all not to give up hope and to just keep doing the most we can in our own areas of influence to make a change in society. And well done to Electoral College for platforms like this. Platforms like this are really very important. Over to you, Adeshola.
All right. It's been 2 hours of intelligent conversations, questions, and responses. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony Usidame, on behalf of the Electoral College, the ED, the board members, the DED. We want to say a very big thank you for honoring our invitation yet again for this cohort. Cohort members, please let's send our love messages on the group, thanking Mr. Tony so much for his insights, for his presentation, really rich and very, very succinct. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure. And we can continue this conversation. Follow me on LinkedIn. The name is Tony Usidamen. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so cohort members, have you heard? We can engage with him further for those of you that have comments or questions, I think you can reach out to him on those platforms and just have more intelligent conversations with him. Thank you once again, sir. We can let you go now. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. All right, cohort members, I trust we're good and we've had a lovely evening. Classes continue tomorrow, same time, 5 p.m. Please ensure that your classmates are in. We apologize to our Muslim friends who haven't had to stop at 7. We are sorry we took about 10 minutes of your time. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Good night.